What's shaking, everybody? Welcome to a Overreaction Monday show right here on Orange Bloods Live. I'm Jeff Ketchum. That is Anwar Richardson. This video brought to you by the amazing people over at Rogue Shop. Do us a solid. Go over to the website, rogueshop.com. See all the products they have. Check out the salves if you're in pain. I'm looking at this. I think this might be a new product. They've got the deep relaxation bath salts.
Ooh.
Might need to do that for my wife. Lip balms, massage oils, soap, you name it. They got a little bit of everything that you like and what you're looking for. But you might even be surprised by the variety of products on the website. It's not just cartridges. It's not just gummies, although they have those too. It's a little bit of everything to help make life a little bit better. Guys, as we get started here on the show, do us a solid. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, get notifications, all those things. Bing, bang, bong, all at once. Welcome into the Specs chat for all of you who are in the Specs chat. Rodolfo, I already see you. Steven, Brandon, Mike, that's right. Good morning and hook 'em.
Oh, Mike.
We're going to be talking about five-star prospects in the program today and projections for them in the 2024 season. There's a lot of them on campus all of a sudden, Anwar. Some of them are prospects really for the future. I don't know what role a guy like Brandon Baker has in year one as a true freshman. It's not quite the same scenario for offensive linemen that it was just a couple of years ago when Kelvin Banks showed up. But then you've got Johntay Cook. You've got Arch Manning. You've got Colin Simmons. It just kind of goes on and on and on. So why not talk about the biggest and brightest young stars in the program and where we think they fit in from a role standpoint in the 2024 season, a season in which the Longhorns are favored to make the playoffs, do damage in the playoffs, and compete for a national championship.
Well, how many 5 stars does it take to beat TCU? I think Texas has enough, Catch. I think they absolutely have enough as far as that collection of talent is concerned. Catch, I think at one point he pretty much had a 5-star at just about every position on campus. Two in the quarterback room, right? We had DJ Campbell. He would count as one as the offensive lineman. Jatavian Sanders was at the tight end position. Johntay Cook was on campus. What about on the defensive side? I know clearly about Anthony Hill. No one from the tackle perspective. Anyone on the edges that were considered?
Not until Colin Simmons arrived.
Mm-hmm.
In the secondary, you've had – I'm trying to think. Now I'm going black. All the guys in my head. And I don't mean Kobe Black either. I meant blank. It was a Freudian slip, right? What did I say? I don't mean to go black.
I thought you were talking. I think you don't. I thought you were referring to Kobe Black, which, by the way,
I'm trying to think of guys that would have been already on campus. It's taken 3 full classes to get there, but now you have them at almost every position. You don't have one at tight end anymore. I think they'd like to change that. Those guys don't grow on trees. You don't have one at the running back position. Technically, I don't view C.J. Baxter as quite that level of player, although they are recruiting one in Jordan Davison, a guy from modern day who I think, and I predicted in my column, 10 Thoughts from the Weekend last night, I think I'm predicting him to be a Longhorn. But yeah, it's still, it takes a while. It's hard to have a 5-star at every single position at the same time.
Yes. And Xavier, how you say it, Filsamy as well, right?
Yes.
So, yeah, that's a good number, Catch. I don't, that's since I've been around here. I mean, you talk about rich people problems. I remember just the glee when like Malik Jefferson was coming. It's like, oh wow, they got Malik and it's Snyder from Texas A&M, and seemed like there was a little bit of a lull, since then. And now, Catch, we're almost at the point. I know we get the predictions in a second, but we're at the point where you're expecting Sark to get a couple of these guys a year, right? We're at the point where he got Colin Simmons, he got Brandon Baker, he got Xavier last year. you got the court that had 2-in-1. He still has 2-in-1 room, by the way. He's got Arch Manning and he's got Quinn Ewers as 5 stars in the room. So I'm at that point where I'm like, okay, now, the second portion of it is like, okay, but when are these guys unleashed? And when will we see more of the the DJ Campbells of the world, and when will we see more of the Johntay Cooks of the world and Arch Manning and those kind of things? But it is exciting to know that those guys are there, that they recruited successfully. And it's interesting, Catch, because we getting the guys who just come out of nowhere, like the Jalen Fords of the world, and become NFL prospects. That's fantastic. But you also do want the guys who check all the boxes, no matter what. And having these guys has definitely done it.
Yeah, I think about the column that you wrote yesterday in your Sunday pulpit over at orangebloods.com. It's a two-sided conversation, development of your 5 stars, really of everybody on campus, is one of the biggest pieces. It's you recruit them, but then you have to develop them. And we went through a period of about a decade plus where the Longhorns weren't getting very many 5 stars, but then when they did, they weren't always developing and turning in to next level guys beyond what they showed up at. I think Caden Stearns might be the poster boy for that. He's in the NFL playing right now, and he was a solid player for Texas, and yet I don't know that he got a lot better in the 3 years that he was on campus, that he kind of showed up a very good player. He left as a very good player, but was never quite a great player, wasn't always consistently an impact player. And I think one of the things that you wrote about this weekend in your Sunday column is that Steve Sarkisian and this staff are really good developers. And when you recruit really well and you develop talent, what it allows you to do, the difference between a TCU and an Oklahoma State and some of the things that we've seen from schools in the Big 12. If you're a badass developer, but you're not getting elite talent on campus, oftentimes it allows you to go for the one big hurrah.
Yeah.
And then you fall back for 2 or 3 years until you can develop another senior or upperclassman group that can give it a run again. And then you fall back down again and you got to build yourself back up. If you're a great developmental staff and you recruit well, it means you've got a chance to be potentially great every single season. And that is what separates the big boys from the pretenders. And pretty quickly, the Longhorns have put themselves into a position where it seems like they're the big boys all of a sudden, because they've done it on the field now. And now you see what's coming in through the pipeline with all of the talent. And you feel pretty much like this staff, because of the continuity, another theme that we've talked about over the course of the last couple of weeks, that they'll be able to continue to develop, to produce, and it won't just be the 5 stars. It'll be guys throughout the roster. Yet as it relates to the 5 stars, I think that these guys will prove to be absolute difference makers when it's all said and done.
Yeah, Catch. I was trying to look it up, and I was trying to wish I ran out of time. But when you said Caden Stearns, I started thinking going back into my mental Rolodex of some of the 5 stars that since I've been here, right? I mean, Brew McCoy had a cup of coffee at Texas, and
that's all he had.
And he was done. And then I couldn't remember who the 5-star linebacker from the Austin area. What was that kid's name?
Eric Fowler.
Eric Fowler. There was another one.
He had 2 cups of coffee.
He had 2 cups of coffee, but not on his way to class, apparently, in high school, because that seemed to be one of the biggest things as far as dude missed a boatload of days, allegedly, his senior year. So you start looking at that, Catch, and I can't. And you would have a better list of the guys who I can't remember all the Charlie Strong guys. If you got any,
well, let me give them to you real quick.
Okay, let's do it.
Let me give you, because the list isn't so long that it's going to take a lot of time. Let me give you from 2010, up until through 2019, which is the Brew McCoy year. Let me give you the entire decade of 5 stars.
Can we call it the Brew McCoy year, the Brew McCoy month?
It's like the week. It's the Brew McCoy week.
Okay, go ahead.
But to be fair, that 2019 recruiting class didn't stay much longer than a week, pound for pound, player for player. It was kind of a disaster. So weirdly enough, probably one of the best players from that class is Brew McCoy. He just didn't do it at Texas.
Yeah.
All right. So in 2010, you had Jackson Jeffcoat, who just recently retired from the Canadian Football League. Didn't get drafted, played. He had a cup of coffee in the NFL, but didn't get drafted. You had Jordan Hicks in 2010, who was one of Charlie Strong's best players in Charlie's first year on that 2014 defense. And he's still playing in the NFL, if I'm not mistaken. So Jordan Hicks was a hit. You had Malcolm Brown, the running back, a really solid college player. He's going to earn his pension in the NFL, but never – and he's number 8 all-time in rushing yards at Texas, something like that, but never had the great season. Then you had Jonathan Gray, which just didn't work out. Then you had Malik Jefferson, which we could probably do a 60-minute show arguing about how good his career was at Texas. There were some highs, there were some lows, there were some off-the-field issues, there were some coaching things going on in that made it all weird. You mentioned Eric Fowler, Caden Stearns, Brew McCoy. That's it. That's it.
It's a pretty bad list.
And Malcolm Brown, the defensive tackle, I left him out. Didn't mean to.
Okay.
But
yeah, he got drafted first round.
He was a first-round draft pick. He's the best. You'd probably say he was the best of the bunch in that he was an All-American at Texas, ended up being a first-round draft pick. But beyond that, probably Jordan Hicks and Malik Jefferson and Caden Stearns, they were all third-round-ish players coming out. And that's about as good as it got. And I think starting with Bijan Robinson in 2020, Jatavian Sanders is about to go on the draft. And then you start going through. I mean, if we just go off the Rivals rankings right now, they've got 7 5-stars on campus, which almost matches what Texas did in the entire decade of the teens. Talking Brandon Baker, Colin Simmons, Xavier Filsaime, Johntay Cook, Arch Manning, Anthony Hill, DJ Campbell. And that doesn't even include Quinn Ewers, who is a 5-star player. And you know what? As we talk about the 5-stars on campus right now and what we expect from them this season, let's just start with Quinn. Your expectations this season for the second most famous 5-star on campus.
Damn. That just I was like, ow.
It's true.
I mean,
second best. I said second most well known.
Yeah, well, trust, like you, every show I go on, that I get asked about Arch usually before Quinn. So I'm not going to debate that. My expectation for him, Catch, is that he needs to be competing for a Heisman. I think that's my expectation, for him. And I guess as expectations, it's interesting. And I know it's like a wordplay thing. Is this more like a prediction or what I think he should be, the category that he should be in? I just want to make sure I'm saying it correctly.
Well, it's our projections. So
okay, so projection. Okay,
the same kind of as a prediction, I suppose.
Okay, yeah, no. When you said expectation, I'm like, well, I can expect something. I don't know, it'll deliver. So for me, the projection should be, that he should be top 2 as far as quarterbacks in the SEC this season. I think there should only be the Georgia quarterback, and it should be him. That's it. I think he should be my top 5 as far as quarterbacks in the country are concerned. In that mix of the Shedeur Sanders of the world, in that mix of you've totally turned me on to Will Howard. So I'm all on the buying some Will Howard stock. The Georgia quarterback, and there's one other guy I forgot about. Oh, and Dylan Gabriel should be in that mix that we're talking about him every single week. We're talking about year 3 as a starter. We're talking about him with year 3 in the same system with Steve Sarkisian. So there hasn't been all this massive turnover, no new playbooks or anything like that to learn. And then if he's trying to add on weight and get stronger, yeah, Catch. This should be that year where we're talking about, the confetti falling with him as the quarterback. So that's where I'm at with that.
I'm mostly with you. I think that I don't think Quinn Ewers has earned all of the fuss that he's received. When we start talking about guys in the SEC at the quarterback position next year, guys that were given Heisman votes and finished, inside the top 10 of the Heisman, Jalen Milroe was 6th. Carson Beck was in that kind of discussion. Quinn Ewers, and part of this was he missed a couple of games with an injury. You can't ignore that. But he wasn't great last year. And that's okay. Like, he was obviously good enough for Texas to get to a Final Four. I think they needed him to be at a slightly higher level to get past Washington on a night when Michael Penix was what you hope eventually Quinn Ewers does turn into, a guy that does that in a big moment in the playoffs. But the thing that's encouraging about Quinn is that he made the year-over-end progress last year from the year before that you were looking for. That he took, I think, a monumental step forward from how he ended his freshman season and the unevenness of kind of the up and down play that we saw from week to week. He could be great. He could be, and last year he was so steady. I mean, when you look at these numbers, other than the Texas Tech and the Wyoming game, everything else is pretty much in the one and the Washington game. Other than those 3 games, which suddenly seems like a little bit more than I would have thought, 2 of the last 3 games not up to the standard that he was at for most of the season. But he finishes with a 158.6 quarterback rating. That's slightly better than what Sam Ehlinger did year in and year out. Now it's time to take that up a notch. And my expectations for Quinn is that he will. This should be the natural progress of a guy who's the number 1 overall prospect in a recruiting class. Don't judge him early on. You got to let him work out the kinks. You got to let him work out some of these, his footwork and his tendency to just throw with his arm, and he's got to work on the deep ball. And I thought he made progress in every area a year ago, including the mental side of the game. There's no reason why that should stop this year. So I won't talk about him as a Heisman yet type. I know he'll be a front runner, but it was a front runner a year ago. I mean, every time we mention that Quinn Ewers is a front runner for the Heisman and one of the betting favorites going in, we should probably not fail to mention that he was exactly the same thing a year ago, and it didn't quite come off that way. So I think that it's his time to take that step. And I won't put it on him that he's absolutely going to do it, but I think if he's going to eventually live, I think we all think this is his final year in college. So it's time to go big, not necessarily go big or go home, but either go big or never quite live up potentially to the status that I think everybody thought he would reach when he was being recruited. But I think on some level, we're probably splitting hairs, because if he takes the big step that I'm talking about, expecting him to take, then he probably is in the category of quarterbacks that you're talking about. When we did the show about the quarterbacks, was it last Monday? Yeah, I think we were talking about the quarterbacks across the country. Yeah. I don't think anybody's great yet. I think they're all very good. And so I don't have a problem if you argue that Quinn Ewers is as good as Shedeur Sanders or Jalen Milroe or Carson Beck. I don't think he was quite as good as Carson Beck was a year ago. And, voters from around the country didn't think he was as good as Jalen Milroe. But we're splitting hairs because none of those guys, I think, are at the level of a Michael Penix or a Bo Nix or a Caleb Williams or a Jalen Daniels. So that's the last step for him to take. And it will define his career largely. He's a hard guy to talk about. Winning the Big 12 makes him a made man at Texas forever. Like, they can't ever take that away from him. It puts him in the discussion of the best quarterbacks in the history of the school because not that many guys accomplish that. Can he reach even more rarefied air? And ultimately, that's what we're talking about. He's already in the discussion of the top 5 or 6 guys of all time in the program's history. Can he be a Mount Rushmore guy? Can he put himself on the level of a Colt McCoy? I won't say Vince Young. That feels like blasphemy, but Colt McCoy, that's doable. If he repeats the season that he had this year, and they make it to the playoffs, I think that's fair. And McCoy's a guy that's got his number retired and is regarded as one of the best in school history. So there's a lot for Quinn to play for.
Yeah, I mean, when you say like VY, like, yeah, okay, that's like one of the best quarterbacks in the history of college football. But that's why I think you're accurate to say a Colt McCoy-ish kind of thing was probably a fair. Here's the only thing. I said it only, but this is the main thing for me as relates to Quinn. And I'm not putting any bad juju out here, but the facts are the facts. And this is one of these things that catch you. There's certain things that I get and I hold on to, and me well enough to know, like, I'll talk about this for the next 8 years, whatever the case may be. This is going to be one of them, and it maybe segues a little bit into the Arch conversation as well. But it's the having quarterbacks stay healthy for 12 games at Texas is just not something that we see. And we haven't seen it necessarily for Quinn, and we haven't seen it for his predecessors either. And I went back before we got on here. I went back and pulled up a portion of a story that I had, right? And these things can't be denied. When you start talking about QB injuries, you have 2009, you have Colt McCoy. Obviously, we know what happened there. You got 2003, David Ash gets his first brain injury. We got 2014, David Ash gets another brain injury. We got 2015, and we got Gerard Hurd with a brain injury as well. 2017, we've got Sam Ehlinger with a brain injury, right? Then we got 2018 with Sam Ehlinger gets hurt. We got 2019 where we know that Sam was really hurt that year, Catch. And you and I remember the stories about how they wanted to shut it down during a bye week and how there was some issues behind that. But we know Sam was hurt pretty much all of that year. 2020, we got Ehlinger with a shoulder injury. Casey Thompson coming in. Got 2021, of course. That happens. We got 2022 when Ewers misses time. And I wrote all this before they announced last year that Malik Murphy would be the starter, and Malik Murphy started in 2 games. So now if you add in 2023, he misses 2 games. So overall, if you just look at the volatility of the QB position and you look at Quinn, and he's a guy who's really been injured, Catch the last, 3 years he's played football. His high school years, at least one. And then his 2 years that he's been here at Texas. Like, you talk about my biggest concern, and this bleeds into an Arch and how Arch needs to be ready kind of thing. And yeah, I mean, that's my biggest concern. And by the way, love that super chat.
Lane, way to show everybody how it's done. $100 super chat. Does Quinn's footwork need a ton of work? A ton? Lane, I wouldn't say it needs a ton of work. It does need work. I think he's got such a gift in terms of arm talent that the feet oftentimes instinctively become the second part of the process. I think Quinn thinks he can make almost any throw, and he's not wrong, but he can get himself into trouble when it's too much arm and not enough feet. And so, I think that's part of the continued evolution of Quinn Ewers. The NFL wants to see his feet get a little bit better. I think Steve Sarkisian wants his feet to get a little bit better. And I bet if you ask Quinn, he'd say, yeah, no, I need my feet to be a little bit better.
Yeah. Lane, I'm good friends with a former NFL quarterback who's been, Catch knows who I'm talking about, but I'm good friends with him, godfather to my son. In any case, he's watched Quinn's games, and he's told me before, he said Quinn looks like a guy who was so good at a young age. They just started doing other things, just because he was so much better than the competition, so much better than everybody else, that he started throwing like sidearm and doing all kinds of things. He said he goes, looks like a guy that became part of his repertoire. And that's the thing, like now that, they have to kind of work on a little bit more with him is his projection is his thought after watching him for years has been, he was just so far advanced. He probably just started doing other stuff. And then now, as a result, these are things that they're just having to work on as in college.
Just like every young kid wants to be Steph Curry. Every young kid wants to be Patrick Mahomes that plays the quarterback position. And if you're not, and Mahomes is like a unicorn. Yes. If you try to act like a unicorn and just forget that you're a thoroughbred, you can potentially like fall off a cliff or run into a wall or something like that. Lane, appreciate the question, my man. Do not be a stranger. Way to set the bar today from a super chat standpoint. By the way, a few more messages I'll pass along. Doug, what's up? Good morning. Hook 'em. Appreciate you being with us on a Monday. And Rogue Shop will be joining us momentarily a little bit later on in the show. But what up to Richard and Shar and the entire gang over at Rogue Shop.
By the way, as you shout out something, I just did something real quick for 20 seconds that only you, me, and Mike Torres will get a kick out of. He says, for Onward, to hell with Josh Wolf. Okay, that's it.
Josh Wolf's not my problem with that particular organization. By the way, is your kid how did the tryouts go on Friday?
Good. We'll find out pretty soon. We'll find out very soon. We're winning regardless.
Arch Manning. What do we think with Arch? I think he probably starts a couple of games. I expect him to have the build-up year that Quinn did to a certain extent. And I don't know that I expect a whole lot more. Progress, I expect him to play. And when he's called upon Anwar, I expect that he'll play pretty well. I don't expect him to be better than Quinn. I don't expect him to take the job from Quinn. But I do expect, again, think about who we're talking about here. A 5-star guy, number 1 in the country at his position, number 1 overall prospect in the country. Yeah, I expect absolute improvement from year 1 to year 2.
I mean, Cash, as you're talking about it, so let's do this. And when we look at the schedule right now, can we say that we we expect Arch to be in at least 3 games? Playing at least the fourth quarter of at least 3 games this year?
I think he plays in about 5 games this year, maybe 3 of them. Colorado State, UTSA, UL Monroe. It'd be very disappointing. Hell, throw Mississippi State in there as well. Yeah. So I think he plays in 4 of the first 5 games. I think then he's not playing against Oklahoma and Georgia unless there's an injury or somebody opens up a can of whoop ass. Vanderbilt, you could see happening. And then these other games, I think, are going to be competitive.
Yeah.
So I think we're talking about 5 or 6 games, not including games that he might eventually start. But yeah, I expect him to play more than he did a year ago. It will be, they'll know that he's the guy next year. So behind closed doors, Sark will want to get him more experience. Sark will want to get him as ready as possible for the handoff that will occur in the 2025 season, where they'll again have playoff expectations, national championship expectations, and all of those conversations that we had about Quinn Ewers just a year ago, when it was like, this is his first start. This is his first start on the road. This is his first start against Oklahoma. You do all of these first, and we were talking about the ups and downs that come with young players. You want to try to mitigate that as much as you can. And the surest way to do that is to get him playing time that's useful and not just handing off to Savion Red, or any of the young running backs that might also be playing in the fourth quarter.
Well, hold up, Catch. Before I get into it, Barb's 10 with a super chat. He goes, it ain't Lane A money, but appreciate what you guys do. Let's make it appreciation money and pay the men their money, fellas. Hey, I don't know what you guys did over the weekend, but do that more often because I like what you guys are doing on this Monday. I don't know what it is. I don't know what put you in a good mood. But whatever it is, do it again.
They made it happen on Prize Picks. What they did was they took all of the Texas basketball players and took the less. Oh, is that too soon?
No, it's not too soon. I think everyone is.
Is that too soon?
Understands.
Ben G says my like is greater with 3 greater than signs. Lane A's $100 super chat. Ben, tell yourself whatever you need to tell yourself to get through the day. But if I agree with you, Lane may never send another $100 super chat again. So Lane he's our guy today at this point. We love you, Ben. We love you, and we want your likes, but got to keep it a buck also. You wouldn't.
Yeah, Ben. You're Ben. He's Benjamin. Okay. And we like Ben, but we also like those Benjamins. Catch, but as it relates to the art conversation, though, I mean, if there's ever a player that Steve Sarkisian has to make sure is 100% ready to hit the ground, it's Arch Manning. Like that there cannot look, Catch. If Arch is not successful, nobody's going to be buying like, man, he just wasn't ready. They're going to look at Steve and say, what happened to you? Because it's a tough sell to tell anybody that Arch wasn't ready or Arch is not ready to go. So the big thing becomes like, hey, get that guy as many reps as possible as you can this season. Make sure he's participating. Obviously he's competing for the starting job in his mind. But that guy has to be ready to go. Not only is it because it has to be ready to go for the 2025 season, but again, if God forbid that something happens and Quinn has to miss a quarter, a half, God forbid a game, right? That guy has to be ready to go because the pressure and the all eyes will be on Texas and Arch Manning. Like that, if Arch is having to start against whatever the team, Colorado State, they're talking about that on game day all morning long. That's all they're talking about, right? That's it. I'm using Colorado State as an example. I'm not even talking Georgia or anything crazy like that. All eyes will be on Sark. All eyes will be on Texas. All eyes would be on Arch. He's got it. That guy has to be ready to go.
Anwar, what are you thinking about Johntay Cook? If we move along on the 5-star discussions, what do we expect from Johntay Cook?
That's a tough one.
He could be the best receiver on the team. He could also not start in theory.
I mean, I don't know what to make of this one, Catch. And this is a tough one because I feel like the talent is there. I don't feel like that my eyes have deceived me or in any stretch of an imagination. I can't ignore that Sark also said not only to go out and get 3 guys in the portal, but he also basically is like, hey, these guys don't have a lot of experience. I need some guys with experience. I don't know. It sounds like Johntay maybe gets sprinkled in here and there, and maybe has a chance to take over. But you bring in 3 guys who are veterans, so you didn't necessarily have those guys to come in just to be role players behind the current guys that you have or depth. So I don't know what to make of. I don't know what would be a good season. Is 500 receiving yards and 5 touchdowns? Is that what we're talking about as a benchmark? I don't see 1,000. I can tell you that much. I don't see 1,000 at all. So where maybe is that 5 and is that good? That's a good question, Catch.
I think First of all, I think Johntay, this is my projection. I think Johntay Cook proves to be impossible to keep off the field. I think he has a bang-up spring. I think he's probably the number 2 receiver on the team behind Isaiah Bond. And I think he probably has – because I think he's better than Matthew Golden. Oh, my God. If Johntay Cook had been at U of H and he'd have been their number 1 guy, he'd have put up Matthew Golden numbers. You know, Jontay's problem was that a year ago, he was playing behind 2 guys on the outside that are high-level NFL draft prospects, and he's a young guy, unproven. I think he's probably more like 707. 700 yards, 7 touchdowns. And then if he does that, then Bond leaves for the NFL after 1 season, and Jontay's wide receiver 1 as a junior. Then he has a chance as a junior to have the big All-America season. And then he goes to the NFL. And then we'll be talking about Ryan Wingo, who, by the way, if we're talking about 5-star guys, I know he finished just on the outside of that with rivals. I think he's probably Johntay Cook from a year ago. I wouldn't be surprised if he finishes like 8 to 10 catches. He finds himself as one of the top reserve wide receivers, but maybe number 5 at best. And we know under Sarkisian that if you're the number 5 receiver, you might as well be the number 15 receiver, because at least a year ago they didn't rotate a lot. And when Sark has his guys at wide receiver, he doesn't rotate a lot. So I think that I'm expecting I'm expecting a massive jump for Johntay Cook. And I'm expecting a quiet break-in year for Ryan Wingo.
So you think about 800 for Johntay is what you're thinking?
Somewhere between like 7 and 800. I won't go so far as 800. That's Adonai Mitchell territory. I'm going to go a little bit less than that, but he's so talented that I think the cream will rise to the top. I think all of this transfer stuff will motivate Johntay, and they'll get a hell of a lot more out of him this year than they did a year ago, when it really wasn't his fault. I mean, that was a guy that played on the field at Alabama. He played in big games. He just didn't play a lot. I think he does this year.
Listen, from your mouth to God's ear, I love the guy. I love him as a prospect. I think he, like you, is super talented. And I think if given the opportunity, I mean, he's definitely we know what he can do. And listen, we know Rodolfo has been calling for this since last year. So we obviously know that thing has to happen.
Real quick, we're gonna take a break from the 5-star discussion for just a moment, Anwar.
All right.
Joining us right now, it's Royalty. The sponsor of the show is RogueShop.com, and joining us right now, Mr. and Mrs. Rogue.
Man, well, that's quite an introduction, guys.
Royalty, you need a crown, is what you need. A crown made out of hemp.
What's going on, guys?
Smells good.
Hey,
Good
we
morning.
wanted to have you on. Probably want to do this like once a month. We've been talking behind the scenes. We want to mention that by the end of the week, we're going to have a $100 gift card giveaway. We're pushing people, though, to eventually do as Google reviews and hit the like button on Facebook, and we'll get all of this information out in front of them throughout the week. But tell them how important that stuff is to what you guys need to try to what y'all want to accomplish.
So, reviews are really important for us just because we're like the little guys. And so when people find us on the internet, they're like these people could be scam artists or something like that. So those reviews really help people to know, that we're real. A lot of people think that we're not, or they write us funny messages on our live chat on our website because they think it's a bot. It's really us. So that helps us, look more trustworthy. And we appreciate all the reviews that you guys have given us over the years because it's really made a big difference in our business.
Anwar and I always talk about the cartridges, the gummies. We like to sleep well. We like to feel good. You guys have so many products. You have pet products. My wife and I were talking about the need to get some doggy products this week. What's the most underrated product that you guys have that people may not have even heard of or considered yet, but has proved to be wildly successful for those that get it?
That's a really easy question, actually. The whole reason we got into this business is because of the salve that we sell. It's like a kind of a rub-on, a topical, and Richard rubbed it on his knee like 4 years ago, and it took away a ton of pain. And then that was when we started believing the story that CBD really can help people. And so a lot of people, there's all the glamour around the psychoactive products, and they're great, and we'll totally sell those to you. But the salve is really where it's at. It literally does everything else without the excitement of psychoactivity. So we sell this salve like all over the country. We even have like tribes in Africa that use it. So it's kind of one of our few things that goes global.
By the way, Richard, just so you know, Ben says Mr. Rogue definitely outkicked his coverage.
I don't know what that means, but it sounds like
I was wondering if she knew what that meant. It means that
it means Ben's trying to holler.
It means he thinks you're attractive and he doesn't know how that guy pulled you is what it means.
You should have seen this guy. Like when I married him, he was definitely, we've kind of grown together now, but he was definitely out of my league. I had to run around after him a little bit. So
wow, the truth comes out, Richard. Attaboy. Anwar, you got any questions?
Yeah, I mean, just like let everybody know, like, generally, like what you guys do, because because it's Rogue products, right? But some of the things that you guys can offer, for some folks, that, I know you mentioned the salves, but what are some of the other things that are popular that people could really take advantage of, whether for everyday needs? Because we talk sleep, but some people don't necessarily need it for sleep. Some people need it for anxiety or things to that effect. So, just give us kind of a rundown.
I think there's a lot of people. Again, we keep going to the psychoactive thing, which, don't get me wrong, I love. I'm sure my husband will tell you, like, there's a lot less nagging since we've had cannabis in our life. So for real, that's a great thing. But there's a lot of chronic pain and inflammation that we live in daily. A lot of people are, they carry an Aleve or a Tylenol bottle in their, their car, their purse, whatever. A lot of people don't realize CBD can actually replace those sort of things, and it's going to be a lot less tough on your liver. So like for me personally, I always have like at least some daytime gummies or something. If not my tinctures. A lot of people don't even know what tinctures are. So maybe I'll back up and talk about that for a minute. Where gummies are really popular, cartridges are really popular. But there's like that middle of the road, and that's our tinctures and our oils. Like Ketch was talking about our pet tincture. Oils are a really great method of delivery because you put them under your tongue and they actually start kicking in really quickly. We don't have the smell. We don't have the smoke. And, I'm sure, actually, I don't want to blow up Ketch's spot about the first time that he took some of our edibles. But edibles are a little tricky to start with just because you never know exactly when they're going to kick in. So tinctures are a great way to kind of start into the field because they do kick in more quickly and you can start to kind of figure out your dosage. So those are always a great option to start when you get into the field. And then if you guys hang out on our chat, we kind of hold your hand through the rest of the process because there's a lot. There's the smokables, there's the topicals, there's a lot of body care products. And I know you guys don't want me on here all day talking about the 100 products I have on my website. But I would say that for most of the time for the cartridges, let's leave those to the professionals like Anwar and Ketch because they are very concentrated. And so, I see somebody talking about psychedelics. I just had an experience with those, and this is totally off topic, but y'all be careful with those mushrooms, okay? They are more than just a topping for your spaghetti. So we cannot actually sell psychedelics, so just psychoactive products, and we are very strict on the law. If you have ordered from us before, you'll see that you'll get all the lab work and all that stuff. So we want to make sure that we're protecting ourselves, but we're protecting you guys too, especially in Texas. We know they're not exactly cannabis friendly. So hang out with us and we'll kind of teach you the ropes on what's safe and make sure we'll try to keep you out of trouble. I can't promise anything, but
for the record, what you don't want to do is order the moon rocks and keep them next to the gummies, and then have your wife confuse the moon rocks for the gummies. Onward, she walked up to me, and her teeth were all black, and she's like, "These don't taste as good as I thought they were." And I was like, "What have you done?" And she ate the moon rocks, which are like resin balls, essentially, instead of
So Ketch calls us up and he's like, so hypothetically, what would happen if one had partaken of the moon rocks? And we're like, partaken or smoking?
Did she smell it at least beforehand? I don't know.
She ate the moon rock, Anwar. She was committed to the task, and
but she still talks to us after that. So atta girl for taking one for the team.
Catch.
Yes.
You realize your wife is going to kill you, right?
No, she's not, because she's sleeping right now. If I thought she was
just wake her up with an edible on a platter, like, here, babe, have a great day. She won't care.
No. Yeah, no. She thought she was going for the gummies. She just grabbed the wrong jar out of my drawer. And sometimes you have to learn lessons the hard way, as Apollo Creed once.
We've all been there.
Ivan Drago, right before Ivan Drago murdered him in the ring.
We've all been there. That's why, we send a little red card out with our mail, with every package, warning y'all. Most people are still going to do what they're going to do, but at least we tried to warn you. Because I've gotten some phone calls and some messages and emails of people who are like, I'm new to cannabis, but I just took y'all's 275 milligram gummy, and I'm calling from the ER. Because I can't breathe.
Wow. Which they can. They just have to actually breathe.
Yes, absolutely. And read my blogs about it.
You can't just stop breathing and be like, eventually it'll catch up to you.
Well, all right. You just forget that you were breathing. You just forgot.
That's true. Mr. and Mrs. Rogue, thank you for some time on this Monday. We will be highlighting the giveaway. We're going to be pushing the Google reviews, getting people onto the website, checking out everything that's going on. You're a star, right? I told you you'd do great. Richard just sitting back there being quiet, and you're handling it like a pro. You guys have a great.
He's the pro, Catch.
That's why I
can talk all day long on this. So I let him do everything.
Shar, thank you very much. You guys have a great rest of the Monday. I will be in contact.
We appreciate all of y'all. Thank you so much for everything y'all do for us.
You got it. The one and only Mr. and Mrs. Rogue. Anwar, I enjoyed that. Makes me, it's like, what product do on a Monday morning? I just open up the desk drawer and there it is.
Let's go back. It is really cool. It was really cool to see, this is they're a couple and this is their business together. So they work together doing this stuff. I think it's pretty cool,
Well, and when you get the products and they're all packaged nicely and they look like Christmas presents, that's Shar.
Yeah.
Richard isn't putting them pretty ribbons and bows on those packages.
That's the quietest I've ever seen Richard, by the way. I mean, I've never seen Richard not talk. What happened? She must have told him beforehand, listen, we'll mess this thing up for us. All right. Don't you say nothing, Richard.
It's my first appearance. Don't embarrass me like Jeff would embarrass his wife if she were nearby. Hey, let's segue. If we're talking 5 stars, we can't not talk about Anthony Hill. I looked at Alex's deep dig historical numbers from this season. I always pay attention to the offensive line because he'll put this person's offensive line season against other offensive line seasons. But I was looking at the same thing on the defensive side of the ball. Anthony Hill as a freshman was in the top 5 or 6 most productive defensive players of the last 10 years as a freshman. When we talk about disruption for snap, he's at the very top of the leaderboard, not of last season, of which he was 3rd behind Murphy and Sweat, but he was 5 or 6 all time since Alex started doing the rankings over a decade ago.
Mm-hmm.
So what do we expect? What's the projection in year 2?
Man, I mean, you would expect it just to be nothing but immense productivity from that guy. So I mean, this is, you know, Darwin says All-American year. I mean, the sky's the limit, I think, as far as what he can achieve. You know, he's going to be that guy. You know, what you got to hope is, as Nansen comes in, Nance's going to have a toy that he can absolutely use. You know, Jeff Choate, by the way, low key catch, did a pretty damn good job while he was here at Texas. Like he did a really good job of developing those linebackers.
An excellent job.
Yeah, I mean, he got productivity out of guys that, you know, the David Bendas of the world, you know, the Ted Bushes, like these guys that he was able to get something out of, not let alone an Anthony Hill. And so you just got to hope the new guy comes in and just takes the baton from that and keeps that thing going. And if he is able to do that, I mean, All-American season, like absolutely in the SEC, like you expect him to have that kind of impact. We saw what he did against elite competition. We saw what he did against Bama. And so if they unleash him, you want to talk about Apollo Creed and Payne, Mr. T and Payne, like that's what that looks like.
You know, they bring in Johnny Nansen to be the linebackers coach. And at Arizona, that guy had his linebackers attacking. And I think that that's where Anthony Hill's at his best. I think that towards the end of last year, he went from being a guy that they attacked a lot with to more of a conventional sideline to sideline between the hash marks, kind of a thumper, but also kind of, you know, he was one of the foundation blocks of a rock steady defense. I want to see Anthony Hill doing more Sergio Kendall things. And I think one of the more exciting things about this defense potentially is you add Colin Simmons and Trey Moore to the pass rush. So maybe now you're getting one or two of those guys on the field, maybe Ethan Burks on the other side, or Barron Sorrell, who had a very underrated pass rush season. I keep telling people, he was among the Big 12 leaders in pressures, but he wasn't converting pressures into sacks. But a lot of times that feels like bad luck. That feels like if I flip a coin 20 times and 15 times it lands on tails. But by the time we get to like 200 flips, heads is going to have a heck of a comeback. Mm-hmm. And I think Sorrell's got that. I think Burke's got that. I think you add in Moore and Simmons, and the best pass rusher of the bunch might be Anthony Hill. So if they can find a way to create havoc pressure packages where they don't know who to double team off the edge, and maybe Hill is a guy that's coming in and they're running stunts with, I think adding Nansen and some of his philosophy to what PK does defensively might be the thing that allows Anthony Hill to take the next step. I think he would have been used as an attacking weapon at Arizona. I think that's what we might see. By the way, Richard totally distracted me. He told Ben, because Ben said that Richard was quiet because he was high. And Richard says, if I were high, I would be in bed somewhere sleeping, not on a podcast.
Fair enough.
Spoken like a man who knows what he's talking about.
Fair enough. Fair enough. My man was taking care of business.
First team all SEC. Is that the bar for Anthony Hill in year 2?
I think it's an achievable bar for him. Yeah, I definitely think so. And I don't think that's overcooking it as well. Whatever hesitations you may have had and say, okay, I'm projecting this for Quinn or whatever the case may be you may have had for that, very easy to check the box for Anthony Hill.
What about Colin Simmons? Year 1. A lot of guys he's got to compete with playing time for, and Trey, the presence of Trey Moore.
Yeah.
I know they told him, hey, we want to get both you guys on the field at the same time. Don't worry about Trey Moore. That's not competition for you, but it is competition.
I mean, it is. I mean, you can't deny that, but you also can't deny Colin Simmons and what he can do as well. So that's going to be interesting, Catch. And look, we know that Texas needs more pressures on the edge, right? We understand that, and so I think that's going to be that. I'm not going to rule him out. I'm not going to rule him out. And here's what I'm going to say about this. And I know it's going to happen. Someone's going to cut this out and send it to Trey Moore, and it'll be his motivation. And look, and I know it's going to be the same for Colin Simmons, so I'm going to put them both in the same category. I need to see them both do it on this level. Like, I need to see Trey Moore do it at this level. I need to see, because if Colin Simmons can do it at this level, just because Trey Moore did it at UTSA, no disrespect, I need to see you do
disrespectful.
Okay, it is disrespectful. It was at UTSA. All right, fine. I'll just say it with my chest. He did it at UTSA. I want to see you do it in the SEC against this thing week in and week out. Like, there is a reason why. And so now, if that translates, so be it. That's absolute great. That's great. But this is different competition. There's different levels to these things. I mean, again, Tariq Milton put up really good numbers where he was. Came here to Texas, was a pure afterthought when he got here. So I need to see what he does when he gets here.
Did you just compare Trey Moore to Tariq Milton?
I just use it as an example.
Okay.
I'm just saying. We've seen the guys come in with these gaudy numbers, or good numbers rather, and I mean. I want to see.
You know what Trey Moore is saying? Hey,
F you.
No, he's saying, look, man, you can say I did it at UTSA and I need to do it at the SEC, but at UTSA they were throwing double and triple teams at me. In the SEC, I probably just got to beat one guy.
Yeah, I mean, that's good. Then I just want to see you do it.
If I set Colin Simmons' sack number in year one at 5.5, which is what Ethan Burke had a year ago. Will you take the over or you take the under? We should do it like Prize Picks, more or less.
I mean, that would mean if he's that would probably mean he's getting a little bit more playing time than Trey Moore at that point, right?
Well, it's probably maybe SEC Freshman of the Year.
Yeah,
if he finishes with 6 or more sacks.
I mean, what did Ethan Burke finish with last year?
5.5.
Is that what you had just said? Is that why? Did I just miss that?
It's okay.
Okay. I'm sorry. But that's Ethan Burke in what, year 2?
It's Ethan Burke as a redshirt freshman.
Okay. I'll probably take the less on that.
I probably will as well.
Okay.
Because we do this every year. People talk about sacks. Everybody on the team has to have double-digit sacks. And it's like, God, that's hard to do. Ask Barron Sorrell. Barron Sorrell's like, I had 35 pressures last year.
Yeah.
I got the quarterback running all over the field, but getting his ass on the ground is a whole different thing.
Hey, listen, we love Barry. But Barry's talking about double-digit sacks all off season as well. So, it wasn't just us.
Well, Barry was clear to say double-digit sacks equals taking his ass to the NFL.
Yeah.
He didn't get double-digit sacks. He's back for another year. So at least Barry was straight up transparent about what the goal was. And I'm sure that'll be the goal this year. And I think the strength of this defense on the defensive line is going to be on the perimeter this year, whereas last year it was on the inside. And so, it'll be real interesting to see how that plays out. I mean, we could do a whole show on defensive tackles. I don't think nobody would really watch except for the diehards.
Yeah.
But there's a conversation to be had about Alfred Collins and Vernon Broughton and, what they'll have inside. But I think on the outside, I think all those guys are potential NFL guys. I think Sorrell's an NFL guy. I think Ethan Burke's an NFL guy. I think both Trey Moore and Colin Simmons are going to be NFL guys down the road, even if Trey Moore has to prove it on this level. I think if he did one more, if he'd stayed at UTSA, led the nation in sacks again, because the thing about Trey Moore that's really impressive is that he put together back-to-back seasons of double-digit sacks. So if he did it another year at UTSA, the NFL would be seriously interested in him.
Oh yeah.
You know, where he goes, I don't know, but they'll take chances on guys that are proven to get to the quarterback position.
100.
Last thing, last 5-star, at least amongst the rivals rankings. Xavier Filsaime. Is he the Derek Williams of 2024 in that we expect Makuba and Williams to be the starter, but Filsaime may be the third safety who plays quite a bit because he is the third safety? And maybe that's ignoring Michael Taft and not being really respectful to how good he was a year ago, because he's actually a pretty productive player. And I feel like if he had just started out on scholarship in the first place, people would view him in a different light than the fact that he's now on scholarship but used to be a walk-on.
Yeah. You know what, Catch? I mean, I'm just keep it a buck when it's all said and done. Like outside of us all loving Derek Williams, right? And we're just 100. That was one of the worst pass defenses in the country last year. I mean, it really was. So there's nobody's job should be really safe. We're just keeping a buck. From pass defense perspective, they were ranked in the hundreds, that's just not good. You know,
but that was a Jaron Thompson, Keaton Crawford.
Sure. Yes,
like we wouldn't pin that on Derek Williams. But you're not wrong. Like that group needs an overhaul. And you know what? Maybe Filsaime's here in the spring. None of those dudes are so successful up until this point that a 5-star badass can't show up and just take a job.
Correct. I mean, we heard Sark before Derek Williams ever stepped on campus, telling everybody he's going to be a first-round pick. So we understand that, and so to me, Catch, I'm cool with Derek Williams, but everybody else, like, you just got to show me something. And so when it comes to Xavier, hey, sure, why not? I'm not, I think the coaches, this is probably a different video. I think the coaches who have the most pressure, not hot seat pressure, but just pressure in itself, right? I think of Terry Reynolds and I think of Blake Gideon as far as getting a little bit more out of those guys this season. And I think those, and again, not hot seat, not saying they're going to get fired, nothing to that effect, but just like, hey, you've got some tools here. We're going to need a little bit more. And we're going to have to find ways to get some stops. So, and I hate always hear about like communication breakdowns in the secondary, because some of that's on the safeties to be able to communicate.
Enough of that crap.
I mean, come on. I mean, like, we didn't know you guys are going to here. You guys are going to here. That's on the safeties. So yeah, I see Xavier coming in and I say, show me what you got.
I also think miscommunication and mental mistakes are on coaching. Like, together as a group, they got to figure that out. It's a new group of guys. No excuses, though. It's one of the things that ultimately kept this team from probably playing in the national championship game. I know Michael Penix was out of this world good. But if that group had just been a smidge better, just a smidge, maybe Texas beats Washington in that game. Mike.
Well, to your point, though, Catch, though, Terry Reynolds, maybe I just answered my whole thing. He's like the defensive, like, secondary. He's like the passing game coordinator on the defensive side of the ball. Terry Joseph. So technically, maybe if I had to go like pressure, maybe he actually has some of the most.
Maybe. I don't disagree with you. Mike Torres says, where does Vasic fit in all of this? Well, Mikey wasn't a 5-star. So Vasic's not, but I tell you what, Vasic might get a video. I might do a video before it's all said and done this week where we talk about super blue chips that haven't quite super blue chipped yet. Vasic's a young guy, but I loved him coming out of high school. But he's a guy that's been building up his body. He's not yet in the conversation with a lot of – it doesn't feel like he's in the defensive line conversation yet. How long will it take for his body to develop and get him to that point? We'll find out in the spring how much closer he is than he was a year ago. But a year ago, he wasn't really all that close. Onward, any final thoughts before we wrap up the conversation?
It's a really interesting, really entertaining conversation, to be quite honest with you.
We have high expectations for these guys.
Well,
just so you know.
Yeah. But yeah, they're very high expectations. They are 5 stars. This, that. Hey, can I do a sidebar real quick before we get out? Just totally off topic. Is that okay? Hey, listen, can I just say this? If Cam Newton is throwing some sort of 7-on-7 and doing anything, and you're running up on that guy for any particular reason, like, you are an absolute loser of a human being to not respect what that guy has been able to accomplish. I'm kind of flabbergasted at the Cam Newton disrespect that continues to happen. Like, you remember seeing the clip about a couple of years ago where there was some kid that was like just being disrespectful to Cam and the things that he's accomplished? I'm just like, dude threw for like 30,000 yards in the NFL. Like, dude was like one of the best college football players and when he led Auburn there. I'm just, outside of Cam, the whole, like, his hat didn't come off, and outside of him holding his own, just disrespect. I don't know if it's generation. Those coaches, all of them, I hope they get banned. I hope all those coaches get banned for future 7-on-7s.
I saw Bomani Jones make a comment yesterday that we've now seen 4 dudes jump Cam, and Cam's hat didn't even come off.
Yeah.
And then a couple of years ago, we saw some dudes try to get after it with Pac-Man, and Pac-Man didn't even lose the piece of Popeyes in his hand.
Yes.
As Bomani said, maybe people need to stop bum rushing these dudes from Atlanta Westlake. It's a different kind of Westlake.
I mean, Cam is a huge, massive human being. And to think you were going to jump that guy, you know what they're lucky, Catch? They're lucky he actually didn't swing on them.
Yeah.
They're lucky because if Cam's like, you know what? I'm going to regulate and handle all of you guys. He could have cleared house easily.
They're lucky that Cam was sober and Cam realized I have stuff to lose.
Yes.
There are worlds out there where the Cam Newtons of the world aren't sober and don't think about the thing that they have to lose. And dudes end up getting broken and in slings and trying to file a case. And, I thought Cam came out of that pretty well, considering he could have messed them dudes up. And instead he just did what he needed to do to make sure he protected himself, but not like hurting people. Careful, people. Careful. These NFL athletes, I don't know who you guys think y'all are, man.
No, correct.
It's like when people talk about Steph Curry and they're like, Steph's a little guy. It's like, well, is he little?
He's like 6'4". Yes, compared to a 7-footer, he looks small. Steph Curry is not a little guy.
Yeah, he's little compared to like Giannis. Yeah. He's little next to Joel Embiid.
I mean, he's 6'2", but nonetheless, he's 6'2", which means he's still taller than the majority of human beings that are walking the face of this earth.
I mean, the average height in America is 5'10". He's 4 inches taller than that.
Yes.
I'm just saying, the people that you guys think y'all can take, just don't. And on that note, guys, it was a fun video today. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, get notifications, tell your friends, share this bad boy on social media. And later in the week, when we tell you guys how to win the $100 gift card from rogueshop.com, ROGUE. It's not Rouge, it's Rogue. Apparently the spelling lesson. Here, I'll even help everybody out. We'll put the QR code up again. Get the hookup. Why is it not working?
So it's at the very end.
I know. It's taking me a while to get there. I feel like an old person right at this very moment.
I got you.
Thank you. There we go. Look, ROGUE. If you type in ROUGE, you're going to end up at a different place. You could just scan that QR code. Thanks to Mr. and Mrs. Rogue. We enjoyed both having Richard and Shar on. Thanks to our guy with a $100 super chat earlier today. Who was that again?
Lane?
Yes, Lane A.
Lane A.
Thanks to everybody who contributed in the Specs chat. Guys, we'll have Alex back next Monday. The new Overreaction Monday show will be full throttle. But thanks for giving us some time today. Thanks for those of you watching live and watching later. We love you guys. Appreciate all you do for us. Until next Monday, or noon for me and 9 a.m. tomorrow for Anwar. We'll see you soon. Later.